Hello, good evening, and welcome to the latest edition of Daily Record Hotline Live. Myself, Keith Jackson, and Daily Record HQ, and my good friend Craig Swan, who's still recovering from the aftermath of yesterday's demolition derby at Celtic Park. I think everybody is, Craig. Everybody's been talking about it, and we've got a lot of comments in from our viewers. It seems to be a lot of angry Rangers fans out there would be the easiest way to gauge it at the minute.
I suppose that's understandable. You can see the reasons why, despite the fact that I would imagine the vast majority of Rangers fans probably approached the game with some trepidation, expecting that the result might be what it transpired to be. I think there seemed to be a fair bit of angst about the fact that for a perceived lack of fight, lack of quality, lack of whatever you want to call it, and then the manager's comments after the game appeared to just pour petrol onto the top of that. So yeah, I don't think it wasn't a good day for the Ibrox faith.
Yeah, as you said, I don't think too many of them went into that game with any great confidence. I think they probably knew it was going to be a tough old afternoon, but I think it was the nature of the performance that's caused the problem, hasn't it? It was kind of they went into their shells. I was reading Barry Ferguson's in our paper tomorrow, and that's the thing that seems to be sticking in his throat. It wasn't the fact that Rangers were beaten. It was the fact that they just showed a lack of appetite for the battle, I think.
Yeah, listen, it's one of the oldest cliches in the book. There are certain ways to lose.
Yeah.
Game, you've got to lose it in a certain manner, etc., etc. I personally would keep going back to the fact that Celtic just have better players. I think Rangers can fight, scratch, do all they like. I mean, I can remember when the roles were reversed and, Celtic had players like, Vidar Riseth throwing himself out and doing two-footed challenges and getting sent off, and Stefan Mai doing the same thing.
Yeah, and Rico Anoni.
That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. Like we're scrapping, we're fighting. At the end of the day, you've got to try and find some football quality. That's really the main thing. And it looks to me, you would never get any professional to admit it, but it looks to me as though a few of the Rangers players look at that Celtic team and feel it.
Yeah,
they feel it themselves that they're not good enough to cope.
And I think, Sony, what I found interesting about the game yesterday was that Rangers had that 10 minutes where clearly they've been working on it and training. This is how we're going to set up. This is how we're going to attack the game. This is how we're going to press. We're going to get in the front foot. We're going to try and dominate Celtic and knock them out of stride. And they succeeded in doing that for 10 minutes. But at the first, as we were saying yesterday, the first sign of bother, the first time that Celtic cut through them, goal was disallowed. But the plan just seemed to go out the window at that point. And that'd be the thing. If I was Philip Clement, I'd be really concerned about that. If I've spent all that time in the training pitch working out the game plan and they just dissolved after Celtic's first attack, that doesn't feel right to me.
To an extent, I would agree with you, but I would stick by what I said when I spoke to you from Celtic Park yesterday. I think Celtic are masters and have become really adept. I've seen it in various Old Firm games. They take 5-10 minutes to work it out. They suss out what the plan is for the other team, who's been pressed, what's happening, and they pick their way around it. And as soon as they pick their way around it, and I think the moment that you alluded to when Rio Hatate sprang Callum McGregor, who escaped Diamande, released Nicholas Goon for the offside goal, that was the moment where we all could see in the ground they've worked it out. That's it. They've worked it out.
Yeah.
They've worked out where to put the ball to create the situation for Callum McGregor to escape out of Mohamed Diamande's eye line. And there you go. That was your evidence that they worked it out. And again, I come back to the fact you could almost sense the Rangers players going, "Oh,
yeah, this ain't working."
And then from that moment on, it's downhill all the way.
I'm just looking at some of the comments that we've had in. Obviously, as I said, kind of a lot of angry, frustrated Rangers fans out there. Here's one of them. Jimmy Strangers from Trinent, John Bennett and the Rangers board have all got to go and take Tavernier, Suter, McCausland with them. David Moyes should be brought in as a manager with Barry Ferguson as his number 2, as Ferguson knows what it means to be a Rangers man from the heart. That's the second person in the 2 days that have said, called for Barry Ferguson to be brought into the Rangers management structure. You having it? I mean, that'd be losing a columnist. That can't happen.
I was going to say that'd be a big void in Friday's paper, so probably not. No, I'm dead against it. We don't want to be filling those extra pages.
We've got another one here. All the way from Perth, Australia, Alan McKenzie. Simple, glaring fact. Tavernier has been useless for years. His goals are for personal glory and have won the club's zilch.
Listen, Keith, I think there's a serious note on that one. Sorry to stop you on that, but I think there's a serious note on that where James Tavernier has retained the captaincy of Rangers. And for his achievements and everything he's done, he got the armband, and probably deservedly so. But you're almost in a situation where it's fairly impossible to drop your captain. But by that situation, Philip Clement's almost tied to playing him when Rangers play Celtic. And I think it's evident to everyone that watches Celtic play Rangers.
He's terrified of Maida.
Has been fried by Dyson Maida.
Yeah.
Now, you're almost hamstrung from being able to make a switch in that position because clearly Philip Clement and the previous managers feel they've had to play him. I think there's now a serious situation where when the next Old Firm game comes around, Philip Clement has to look at it and think, can I pick James Tavernier at right back?
I think you're absolutely spot on.
I'm not sure that I can. But then what do you do when you drop your captain? So do you need to change does the armband need to move on? I don't know. But I think James Tavernier's fried in these games now.
Yeah, I think he's a busted flush. I also think that he thought he was leaving the club in the summer, and that hasn't happened. His form so far this season has been way below his normal. And I actually think it is the right time now to go with Dujan Sterling and say, right, you were brought here to be a right back. Let's see what you can do. Give him a run of games in that position. And I'd probably give the captaincy to give the armband at least to Jack Butland. Tavernier can remain the club captain, but on the pitch, that'd be my solution to the problem. And I think the sooner that it happens, the better.
I just think a horses for courses, Keith. I just think a situation. I'm not for 1 second suggesting James Tavernier should be hounded out the club and never used again. No. You know, there'll be games where it's perfectly suited when Rangers have got a lot of the ball and his goal scoring ability and his delivery from wide areas is absolutely top class. But when they come up against the next game, whether it's in the semi-finals of the Premier Sports Cup or the final against Celtic, or whether it's the game at the New Year against Celtic when the teams meet again in the Premiership, you would have to think it would be a massive gamble for Philip Clement to pick James Tavernier in that position.
Well, that's exactly why I would want to get Sterling into that position as soon as possible and give him a run of games just to see, because I do think it's time for a change. I think there, Alan McKenzie goes on, Philip Clement, take note or you'll be gone in 4 months, never mind 4 years. Disgusting team selections every week, no game plan, no improvement, and definitely not learning. I don't know. It's disgusting.
Keith, I'm not sure about disgusting. You look at you looked at the down the team sheet yesterday, and you looked at the subs bench, and there was a kind of realization that is probably Rangers' strongest 11.
Yeah, there's a couple of new boys to bleed into it, haven't they?
There is, in fairness, but you know the new Albanian internationals to come in and the defender that was signed in transfer deadline day. So yeah, but there's not an awful lot that he's got to choose from. Now, again, that comes back to who's to blame for that. Is that previous regimes? He's had a couple of windows himself. Should the trading have been better? Blah, blah, blah. We've been growing about that ad nauseum since the start of the season. So, and even through the summer. So,
a little bit earlier today, Swanee, I was speaking to Andy Newport about this, and I was kind of suggesting to him that rather than cool down, it feels as if the temperature's been rising over the last 12 hours or so amongst the Rangers supporters.
I think we saw over the summer with some of the news lines that came out, and then the stories that there was a wee bit of malaise. I mean, the fans were angry, but I think they were just scunnered with the whole thing. Whereas I think you're now starting to see a bit of the rage coming back. I mean, also we've seen those scenes outside Ibrox last night as the team's making its way back to the stadium, having come back from Celtic Park, and pretty unsavoury scenes. It's not the sort of thing anybody's like to see, but I think it just shows you that the strength of feeling is starting to brew again. It's a support that is put up with a lot. They've paid a lot. They've went above and beyond at times for this paid hand over fist in terms of finances that they've put in, and they're starting to think that they're not getting the value for the £1 that they're putting in. So I think obviously the players got it in the neck. The manager took it tight last night, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next people that get it are the board. And I think that's where you'll see the lasting focus in the next few weeks to come, because as much as we spoke yesterday, Keith, about what sort of how culpable was Philippe Clement for the position the club finds himself in. His whatever he's liable for only stretches back so far. Whatever the group of players, whatever they're at fault for, it only goes back a few weeks to the start of the season. But the mistakes made, the money wasted, the damage done by the poor decision making of the board, I think that's going to fester longer than the minds of supporters. I think you're going to find that they're going to be the ones who are going to have to sort of hunker down in the next few weeks, because they're the ones that are going to be, I imagine, getting it tight.
Well, that's the thing, though, Andy. Where are they? They're nowhere to be seen. You know, they're like a vacant sort of ownership. There's a void there. There's, you know, they weren't at Celtic Park. It was, you know, left to sort of executive guys to front it up. I personally feel that John Bennett is copping a lot here, and I'm not sure he's really the guy. He's been made out to be the pantomime villain. I'm not sure how responsible he is for it. I think that he's inherited a real mess, and that the legacy of previous decisions, he's the guy that's been left carrying the can. I actually feel a wee bit sorry for John Bennett in this one.
What I don't think you can do is fault these guys' intention. I think they've come in with the best of intentions. They've certainly put their money where their mouths are. And times, you know, you're looking at John Bennett. He's in for, I think it's something that he's 23-24 million pounds, but he's personally invested in the club. These are huge sums. I mean, okay, these are wealthy individuals, but you know, you have to be. You know, £20
million is going to hurt anybody, isn't it?
It takes a certain type of person to be willing to invest their money in a football club, knowing that you might never see it again. So, listen, I don't think you can fault what their intention is for the club. I think they will believe that they're out to do the best for Rangers. It's just that there's been an awful lot of wastage, a lot of mistakes made, and right now the team's paying the price for that. And the supporters, who the guys are going to have to be going into their works today, sitting across the table or sitting across the office from their Celtic supporting mates, so they're going to be getting it tight, and they're the ones that are, they're the ones that are having to deal with it. So they're the ones that will demand answers, or the ones that demand solutions. Whether or not the current board can come up with those, we'll have to see. But on track record, you'd think it unlikely, just the number of mistakes that have been made in the last few years. The problem, and there is this kind of campaign starting to gather a bit of momentum, get the board out. It's not simple as that, because if you want John Bennett to leave as chairman, John Bennett has every right to turn around and say, well, I'll take my £20 million back, please. The club still got something like, I wrote it last week, it was in the account, it was something like £14 million worth of loans, something around in that, maybe 11. Directors' loan, yeah, well, I think so outstanding. I think John Bennett's responsible for about 20 million. Yeah. Now, obviously, some will have been paid back, but if he was to just, if he gets sickened by this and decided to leave, that's an incredible big black hole that the club would then be facing. They'd need to pay him back. Yeah. I mean, it won't be easy for John Bennett to get himself out of this situation, just as it's not easy for Rangers to get themselves out of this situation. Really, they need somebody to come in with big pockets. They're looking at an American or a sheikh to come in and splash some serious sums. But I mean, the distance that Rangers are on the pitch behind Celtic and then off the pitch financially behind Celtic is, you're talking miles and miles. So in order to get Rangers back to a serious, level playing field with Celtic, I think you are now talking about, serious regime change coming in, somebody with huge sums. I think you're getting to that point now where it's, they got, if you look at it, the situation they found themselves after 2012 and how they got themselves back almost level pegging, certainly more than level pegging on the pitch. And if they'd just built on that period after that title win, you would think there was a real possibility that Rangers could right themselves up and get themselves on a place where they were on a par with Celtic financially. But they blew it, and now Celtic are just absolutely stripped away. Well, Rangers Here we watched them go through a summer where they're scrambling about, trying to get guys off the wage bill in order just to bring some more people in. It's, you can see why there is this bleak, black mood sort of sweeping around the club, because the supporters feel helpless. They've done their bit. They've filled the stadium out. They went to Hampden even this past month, but they just feel like there's nothing right now that they can do that will help their team get back to the position that they think they should be in.
You're right. Homeless off the pitch and spineless on the pitch. And in terms of what they need to do to correct that, Andy, how do you address this? I think we spoke a little bit yesterday, but James Tavernier as a captain, I think he has to come under real scrutiny. And I know he has been for a while, but I think some of it was unwarranted. But I looked at his performance at the weekend there, and I'm not sure that he looks like a man whose heart is in it. What would you do about that, Andy, if you were Clement?
Yeah, man. Listen, I think James Tavernier has pretty much been another presence, throughout his time. But we saw last season that Clement was, when he saw Connor Goldson, his levels dip. He decided to make a pretty major call and taking him out of the team for the first time in 5 years. That's his entire time at the club. So would it surprise me if he was to do something bold like that and take Tavernier out? No, but again, it comes down to options, so that ideally you're probably saying, well, Dujon Sterling's the man who goes as a natural replacement for James Tavernier. But they really need him in the middle of the park, because there's sort of short options there. And they spoke about at the weekend that they'd also tried to get a replacement in for John Lundstrom. They couldn't do that, so that's why Dujon Sterling's back in midfield again. So Nico Raskin came back yesterday, but again, he's another player, one of many at the club that have never really seemed to sort of convince on a regular basis. So, I think the thing with Tavernier is, I think some of the stick, I agree with you, is unwarranted at the time. I think he's a guy who, does a remarkable job for a right back. That scores a remarkable number of goals, gets forward, helps with assists. Is he a great leader? No, I don't think so. Is he what you would call your traditional archetypal sort of Rangers captain? No, definitely not. But that's not his decision to make. He doesn't walk into the dressing room, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to be captain today." It's up to the managers that says they give him the armband week after week and season after season. So if there is a feeling that there's a leadership issue at the club, and I know there was, I know that certain people at the club last season had major reservations about how strong the leadership group was in the changing room. Obviously, they've altered that this season. They've got rid of Barisic, they've got rid of Lundstrom, they've got rid of Goldson. So they're trying to look to a different group to lead it now. You still got Tavernier there, you still got Butland there, but it's obviously a younger team as well. But if they really feel that James Tavernier's not the best leader, then you simply have to take the captaincy off him. But it's a major call, and I understand it's not an easy one to make. But I think Rangers are beyond the point where they can be thinking that they have to spare people's feelings. I think we're at the point now where Rangers, if they're going to be serious about being contenders for a title this season, then they have to make huge, pretty massive calls, and that would certainly be one of them. Whether or not it would work, whether it would have any impact whatsoever, I'm not sure. But I think we're now at the point where small, minor changes probably aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, there we go, Swanee. And just to illustrate that, I've got a communication here from Davy Matson, who says, and I don't think we need to guess who he's talking about, not a fullback, not a captain, not a team player. Maybe he could clean up in the dressing room because he can't clean up anything on the pitch or on the park. So
I think that's dreadful. I think that's dreadfully unfair. I think Tavernier is an excellent servant, and he's still an excellent footballer. But there are certain things that he's just not good at, and one of them is being a fullback in an Old Firm game at the moment. Yeah, and I just think that a manager has to have the ability to have the choices. And it looks to me like with the captaincy, I'm not sure he's got it.
He's hamstrung.
Yeah.
We've got one here from Kevin. Manager won't be at the Rangers in weeks rather than months. I hope they have money to pay on 4 years' wages. Don't see it. That sort of segues into the responses that we've had from quite a lot of Celtic fans. Not too many talking about their own team and their own performance. I think they're just enjoying the moment and enjoying the gloating rights.
As is the way in Glasgow.
Yeah, but I mean, when we look at Celtic and the standard of that performance, Swanee, we touched on it yesterday. if you're a Celtic fan right now, you've got to be really excited about the prospect of this new squad coming together and gelling, and the season in front, what lies ahead.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best part of it for the Celtic supporters is there seems to be a general feeling around the team, around the the players when you speak to them.
The lights went out in Daily Records HQ there.
All right, okay, and you have to move to set them up. No, I was just saying that there should be a general feeling of excitement because I think there's a feeling that there's more to come from the team, and that's absolutely the case. They've got exciting young new players have come into the building. The team was functioning excellently anyway from the start of the season. The Champions League, the new format. There was a lot discussed about that before we actually saw how the draw unfolded, but you actually look at the fixtures. It looks good. It looks exciting. It's all the different opponents for a start. You're not playing
new, isn't it?
Yeah, you're not. I quite like the fact there's not the home and away thing. You're not playing the same team. Not the same team twice. You got a variety of opponents, and it also gives Celtic the opportunity of looking at the draw to win some games. We spoke about it. You can't go overboard. It's the Champions League. It's not a given because some of the teams they're facing aren't household names, but there is an opportunity there for this exciting young team to go and do well. And if they can solidify at the back, and they've obviously signed Austin Trusty for £6 million in an attempt to do that. Although I have to say, Liam Scales yesterday was absolutely outstanding.
I thought it was immense.
Cameron Carter-Vickers, so he's going to take some shifting. But you almost look at Celtic as a team that should be good in Europe. With the pace on the counter. When they go away from home, you look at Maida, Kuhn and Kyogo, that should be suited perfectly. I mean, Ange Postecoglou didn't do great in the Champions League when he had his first crack at it, but they had a bit of success in the Europa League the season before with Jota, Abada and Kyogo. And they were rapid on the counter-attack. And I remember one night, especially against Ferencváros in Hungary, those three ripped them apart, and it was really exciting. And I think Celtic fans have got a lot to be excited about. They obviously can't wait to get a proper look at Arne Engels in midfield. Callum McGregor's just brilliant. Rio Hatati's sensational. Paulo Bernardo was brilliant. There's so many. Alistair Johnson just looks as though he's come on leaps and bounds under Brendan Rodgers. Just so many players and so many positions that are improving, getting better. So much for Celtic to be excited about.
Yeah, and I think as well, Swanee, part of that is that Brendan Rodgers now has assembled the kind of squad that he wanted, the competition for places. The quality was the word that he's used, I don't know how many hundreds of times, but he's got that now. You could dip into that team and take out 2 or 3 and put in another 2 or 3, and the quality levels would remain very high. I mean, perfect example of that is, as we said, the fact that Matt O'Reilly wasn't at Celtic Park yesterday, and nobody missed him.
So I think if you want to look at the European, I mean, take the domestic thing aside, the European stuff at the very highest level. I think you and I were at the game last year when Celtic played Atletico Madrid at Celtic. And the levels of the first half performance from Celtic was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
What they had to put into that, they were dead on their feet after an hour. And Atletico could have picked them off at the end. Brendan Rodgers did not have 4 or 5 guys of the same level to bring in to keep the level and the intensity of the team up. Now he looks like he's maybe getting there. He maybe start to have it now. And that's the key. That is important for that level. Domestically, you don't want to pigeonhole guys. You don't want to say, "Oh, look, McCowan, he's there to play when Celtic." You don't want to say that because the lad can be good enough to go on and fight his way into the team if he takes his chance. But there was occasions last year when Brendan Rodgers wasn't able to rotate in the way he wanted to. I think on the back of that, I could be wrong with this. I'm sure I'll be corrected if I am, but I'm pretty certain after that punishing night with Madrid, Celtic went to Easter Road 3 days later, and it was pretty much the same team. I think it was 10 out of 11 with the same team, and they were totally flat and drew 0-0 and dropped 2 points. I don't see that type of thing happening this year. I think there's enough quality within the unit that you'll be able to mix it up, no problem, without any fears. Yeah,
and I think his big thing in terms of the recruitment, Swanee, was that he wanted to, it wasn't numbers that he needed.
No, enough of them.
What he needed was that ability to shuffle the pack without dropping down any standards, and that's exactly, I think, what he's been looking to achieve.
Yeah, and one thing I would add, Keith, sorry to break in, but I heard Scott McDermott on the show last week, and he made a brilliant point about Celtic's business and the fact that there's a lot of players who were not going to feature, and Celtic managed to make a rake of money out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So guys that were just not going to play.
That's right.
Said Haksabanovic, they got their money back. I think maybe even a little bit more. I think they got £2 million for Boston Lowell, who hadn't played I don't think he started a competitive game. Played a competitive game. That's tremendous business. It's not just what you're buying; it's what you're getting. All of those guys. I think I heard or read somebody saying that the Deadwood, if for want of a better word, paid for Arne Engels.
It's true. It's true. And you're looking at a situation where Mikey Johnson's leaving the club for, 4 or 5 times what Rangers got back for Todd Cantwell.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I mean, so they've done a brilliant job in streamlining it, because we've heard, listen, we all follow the English football, and we've heard the stuff about, with Chelsea and things like that, and how too many players can just bloat a dressing room, bloat a training session. It becomes impossible. I'm not saying it was as bad as that at Celtic, but it had to be. Brendan Rodgers had made it clear it needed to be streamlined. He now seems to be really streamlining it with all guys that he can trust.
Yeah,
that's really exciting for Celtic.
And it's the flip of the other side of the coin, really, isn't it, over the city? Because Rangers fans are now ready to do protests against the board, and they want change. It wasn't so long ago, in fact, a couple of weeks, shortly before I went on holiday, there was starting to become quite a bit of unrest amongst the Celtic fans about the Celtic board. But you've got to give them their credit and give them their due. It was obvious. I felt obvious that they were always going to spend money because they had to. But they did do it, and they haven't scrimped. They brought in exactly the calibre of player that the manager was calling for, and you what a mood change already. It's just went like that, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how quickly it can turn. Listen, these things that go on, Brendan Rodgers. You say that you always thought Celtic were going to spend the money. I remember 12 months ago thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
At the end of the window. And it didn't materialise in the way the Celtic fans were hoping. And it was funny. Celtic went to Ibrox the game straight after it, where it's maybe going over the score to call it a makeshift team.
It was almost a B team, Swanee.
But there was certainly a few untried lads in there, let's just say. And Brendan Rodgers pulled a rabbit out of a hat, and Celtic won 1-0. Mm-hmm. But it would have been fascinating, because Celtic fans were up my arms about the board at that time and not spending and blah, 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 and they were going to Ibrox. Had they lost that day, it could have been quite feisty. But
sliding doors.
Yeah, you win massive games like that, and this year it's just completely different. As you say, they've got the quality in, and they've just given Rangers another thumping. So
yeah, here's an interesting point from Robert Fruit. And guys, if you're watching out there, then please feel free to hit us in with your comments on all our social media platforms. But Robert Fruit says Philip Clement cites his team's lack of experience compared to Celtic as a reason for their poor results, and implores us to compare the average age of the starting 11s. A quick check reveals his teams to have been 26. Celtic's was 27. That'll be it then. That's an interesting point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. I think it was, and I think I heard somewhere that if you take the 2 goalkeepers out of it as well, I think Kasper Schmeichel's far in advance of years of Jack Butland, so it brings them even closer together in the outfield teams. But listen, I touched on it yesterday from Celtic Park, and it seems to be something that's particularly irritated the Rangers supporters, and it's totally understandable. The stats, all of that stuff that was getting trotted out after the game
wasn't good.
Just does not look. Listen, football fans, I think we would agree, Keith, and that the vast majority of football fans in this country have a good idea about what they're watching. Of course, there is a small element everywhere who believe everything that's said and are just blinded and have got the blinkers on. But the vast majority of guys can see what's going on in front of them. Now, any football supporter just wants a bit of honesty. And if you start telling football supporters who are watching a game that black is white, that is an instant way to get them offside. And that felt like a spectacular own goal to me by Philip Clement yesterday. If you just come out there and say, Celtic were better, we're aspiring to get to their level, and we're going to work every day until we get as close as we can and eventually get past them, you can rest assured that's what we'll be doing. But just be honest about it. Trying to dress it up in the way he did was a massive mistake, I feel.
Well, I think you're right, and I remember when Martin O'Neill came into the Celtic job, he used to refer to Rangers as the yardstick in his first season, wasn't he? And that was it, and that was him saying they're at the top, and what we need to do is work as hard as we can to get there. And you know, Philip,
and that was with a team with Henrik Larsson in it.
Yeah, but for Clermont to actually then refer to a 6-0 win over Ross County as the biggest win in years, that statement was another extraordinary thing to come away with, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just a logjam. It was just a logjam of shots and targets and possession stats and average squad ages. And I'm sorry, the vast majority of Rangers fans can see a football game with their own eyes.
Yeah, the only thing that was missing...
They're educated enough to see their team's not at the same level, so just call it as is.
The only thing that was missing was XG, but I guess that probably didn't back up his argument. In terms of what went on elsewhere over the weekend, Swanee, it's all getting very interesting, isn't it? I mean, I know we're only a few weeks into it, but there are certain patterns emerging here that are a bit of a surprise. I didn't think we'd see Hearts languishing down near the foot of the table. I didn't think we'd see Kilmarnock down there. It's all shaping up quite interestingly. I guess people will find their feet the longer it goes on, but has that caught you by surprise a little bit?
I feel as though European football has had a massive influence in the situation at both of the two clubs you mentioned, Hearts and Kilmarnock. I did a lot of the Kilmarnock games at the start, and it's very difficult for a new squad, not a new squad, but a squad of players not used to that Thursday, Sunday environment to go into it and the travelling and the going away. And it's a stretch. It's a stretch on resources. It's a stretch on limbs. The mentally taxing these games as well. Kilmarnock, to me, also got a little bit unlucky with the fixtures in the sense that, you know, they're in the midst of their European ties.
And they're away at Celtic Park.
Opening day of the season, flag day at Celtic Park. They then have to go to an Aberdeen team that's flying 3 days after they get back from Norway. Now, that was just an unfortunate circumstance. Mm-hmm. The anomaly in there was losing the home game to St Johnstone in the middle, but they had Joe Wright sent off early doors in that game. They played the majority of the game for 10 men. That was the anomaly. A point at home at Hibs, that's not a bad result. No. Kilmarnock have been winning those games over the last 18 months under Derek McInnes at home, but one each at home with Hibs. So really the only anomaly is one game, is the St Johnstone game. Hearts, in a different way, we've been affected by Europe. Stephen Naismith has added a lot to the squad, a lot of numbers. I think there's clearly an understanding that there is going to be a lot of stress put on the bodies within the camp, trying to cope with the group stages in Europe and the domestic football. I'm not saying, for a minute he was going to have one team for one and one team for the other, but it was going to mix and match, I would imagine, to try and keep bodies fresh. The problem with that is he's got a lot of players. Guys have been dipped in and out. New signings have been dipped. It doesn't feel like it's settled yet.
No consistency. Yeah.
There's no real consistency in selection. Hearts were outstanding the opening day of the season against Rangers. They played really well. I was at Dens Park the following week. He switched system to play against Dundee. It failed spectacularly. Mm-hmm. Then they lost to Falkirk in the Cup. All of a sudden, I looked at the Hearts results today. There was 7 games, no wins and 2 goals. That's staggering. That's a staggering start. It just feels to me like Stephen Naismith, he said he's going to fight, and he's a fighter. Obviously, the Hearts fans are not happy at the moment. He needs to try and find a first pick 11 and just stick with it and try and get
options.
The board. It almost feels like that, Keith. Yeah, I know it's a strange thing to say because managers are always looking for options and there will be tiredness, but for a short spell, he maybe just needs to find a settled team and go with it. But of course, first game back after the international break, Celtic at Celtic Park.
That'll be licking his lips at that one, won't it? It's just sometimes when you're locked out, a team that is experiencing a very different run of events or chain of events at the minute is Aberdeen. I fancied that appointment when Jimmy Tillin came in the door. I thought I liked the way he talked. I liked his approach, the kind of football that he wanted to play. And I thought, I think this guy's going to be a good fit. And I felt this might be the first time they've really got a replacement for Derek McInnes. The results have been even better than I expected, though. This is red hot.
Yeah. You've got to give massive credit to Jimmy Tilleen for coming in and getting it going as quickly as he has. Now, there'll be people out there that'll say, well, the fixtures have been kind, and the Premier Sports Cup was games that they should be winning, and the league fixtures have been kind early doors. And yeah, I mean, they got Kilmarnock after they came back from their long trip. You know, sometimes it just falls like that for you. I mean, I was looking at the fixtures coming up. I think I may have got this wrong, but I'm pretty certain Aberdeen get Hearts 3 days after they come back from Azerbaijan when they play Dynamo Minsk. So sometimes it just goes for you and things, but there is no doubt that he's doing a great job and he got them going in the right direction. And that is the main thing at Aberdeen. You know, it can be quite powerful up there when everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet and everybody's, you know, you get that feeling. And listen, nobody wants to see people charging onto the park after, you know, the last gasp winner at Ross County at the weekend. But, you know, that you can understand. They're jubilant, they're excited, things are going well. And
it feels like the momentum is really building.
Absolutely.
And that's half the part.
Yeah, we talked about it, Keith, just a minute ago there about sometimes things going for you. I mean, that game on Saturday could have gone it. You know, Ross County got a penalty kick. It's beautifully struck, and what a save from Dimitar Mitov. And then Kevin Nisbet, who's going to be a great signing. I think he's a polished performer and a proven performer. To fill the boots of Bojan Majowski. Gets a finish in injury time. You just feel like things are running for Aberdeen at the moment. And good luck to him. I think every one of us that loves Scottish football wants it. Again, an old boring cliche, but you do want to see a strong Aberdeen because it's good for the league.
Totally. I was just about to say that because, you know, one thing that you got to say about the Aberdeen support as well, when they're up and when they're excited, they travel in some numbers. So it just speaks to a more healthy environment for Scottish football if you've got them sustaining this. And I've got this sneaky feeling that they're going to sustain it. I don't think this is a sort of early season flash in the pan job. I think they'll maintain this.
Yeah, they probably will. I mean, experience has told us from seeing the sides that have kind of become best of the rest, if you like, through recent seasons. There will be a spell at some point where they might go 4 or 5 games without a win, you know, and that'll obviously be a test. But I agree with you, Keith. He seems like quite a grounded individual, Jimmy Tilleen. He seems quite smart. He's obviously got a great CV. You would imagine he would find ways to fix any issues that come to pass. And again, that while every team wants to be in Europe, it was a real hindrance for Barry Robson last season. And not having that this year is going to give him good time to work on the training pitch, get organized, just get more and more of his ideas across. As I say, I think it's great. And Dundee United up there flying as well. I don't think a lot of people expected that from the start of the season. They've made a brilliant start as well. That's a great, you know, for all we concentrate on Hearts' failings, that's a great result for Dundee United at Tynecastle.
Yeah. I must admit, Swanee, I was so impressed by them and so surprised by what I was seeing in the Dundee derby in the first game of the season. I thought right away you thought they've got some very decent players in there. They could be catch people a little bit by surprise, I think.
And I think there's for everything I'm hearing, I haven't been fortunate enough for the games that I've covered to see Dundee United yet this season, but I'm told there's quite a bold philosophy, there's quite a bold system, and Jim Goodwin's kind of really going for it in the way he's setting the team up. And there's goals in the team, so that's good as well. You know, that's that you want to see that you know that type of approach and that type of attitude and that type of attacking style being rewarded. You know, there's many ways to win a game of football, but you know, I think we would all agree that to see somebody being bold and getting on the front foot, you want to see them doing well. Dundee have made a great start as well. Be interesting to see how it goes after Luke McCowan leaving. But there's so many good stories from the start of the season, and Aberdeen are certainly top of the list.
Brilliant, Swanee. Well, listen. That is the one thing they always say about Scottish football. Sometimes the standard's not the best, but the stories are out of this world. And we'll be bringing you more of those, hopefully, over the course of the next few days. And you can join us back again for Record Hotline Live. Get your comments in, guys, and join the debate. And we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers, Swanee.
Thank you.